Secretary of State is concerned about? Is she worried about other foreign channels becoming the source of information for Americans when it comes to overseas developments? Or is she worried about other foreign channels beating Americans or American networks in presenting a narrative to the whole world?
Well, frankly, I think she really did confuse the issue. She's really worried about her budget. That's why she was talking to Congress. She doesn't want the State Department and its public diplomacy arms to be slashed any more than is necessary. That was the problem. She hit the nail on the head when she talked about the problems of the American networks, but that's not the issue. The real issue for her, of course, was America's voice overseas, and that's not what NBC does or CBS or ABC.
Right.
We do have, however, CNN International, which does a pretty darn good job covering the world, and is available overseas rather widely.
Right, let's go to Abdullah Schleifer, we could, in Cairo. When Secretary Clinton said that the U.S. private media can't really fill the gap, was she hinting at the need for perhaps some public funding, a publicly funded television station? How did you read that?
Well, you know, right now we've been considering two models. Hillary Clinton's concern, which is for you know, government stations, I mean, like VOA, El Horta, directly government finance, or the private American. And of course, they're not comparative. But on the other hand, we do have this problem of poor coverage. Now, even CNN International, I would say, was a lot better a number of years ago than it is today. I watch it. It's one of 3 channels I watch all the time in English. And even they have come under commercial pressure. I don't know why. I can understand domestically between CNN and Fox. But even they have sort of turned the news into a sort of quasi-entertainment vehicle, where instead of simply having news bulletins all the time, they have shows all the time. Now,
so you feel that maybe public funding is an alternative, Professor Abdullah?
Yes, what I'm suggesting is there's a third option, and that third option is public service television, which is publicly funded but not government run.
All right, let's take that point. Sorry if I could jump in. Let's bring in Charlie Wolf once again. Do you agree with that?
No, unfortunately, I don't, and the reason being is you look at the BBC, and it does, on the whole, a fine job. I don't have a major complaint, but that said, my license fee is funding something that I may not believe in, especially on a domestic level. I think it's pretty well written that the BBC has a cultural, there's a cultural bubble it lives in, which is very much to the left. So I don't think it serves a purpose. And that was my worry. I was wondering why it was any business of the Secretary of State of the United States to worry about commercial broadcasters. If anybody should be concerned, it should be the shareholders of NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, etc.
Well, I guess she's worried about U.S. influence around the world.
But that's her job. that's what the Secretary of State does, not NBC, CBS at all. And it's interesting to note, you know, here in the United Kingdom, for instance, we have the BBC domestic service, which is funded by the license fee, the BBC World Service, which is very much lauded and is separate, is actually funded by the our version of the State Department, the Foreign Office, but its budget is being cut. So we're under the same problems here. I'm trying to think what role she's thinking of. We have VOA, so let's go with VOA. NPR is not an international service. I don't really think it should be, and I don't see totally a need for funding. This is one of the debates that's going on right now. I think what she's alluding to tangentially is NPR, PBS is in a lot of hot water recently over the Juan Williams affair. He was one of their commentators, one of their analysts who also appears on Fox News, had made a comment and got fired for this. Meanwhile, there are other commentators or other analysts that make far crazier comments that stay on. The Republicans want to defund NPR, and part of their argument is they don't need the money. The funding only represents about 2–3% of their budget. They make more money from selling Elmo and Big Bird and Sesame Street toys. So I wonder if she's trying to sort of push a bit of an agenda here.
Now, some believe there's more to winning any information war than public funding and investing in those foreign resources. Alexander Coburn wrote in Counterpunch magazine, What would the state-subsidized propagandists be able to boast about? Predator raids in Afghanistan, Guantanamo, 30 million on part-time work or jobless in the homeland? America is not the cell it once was, when the economic growth rate was headed up and capitalism seemed capable of delivering on its promises. Let's go to Tom Fenton. Would you agree with that analysis, Tom?
I would say that the whole idea of public diplomacy to start with, I think, is very misguided. Facts speak for themselves. Actions speak louder than words. The biggest problem with America's public diplomacy programs is that it's not that they don't know how to deliver the message or they don't know how to package the message. It's the policies themselves, the double standards that America uses quite frequently in dealing with the rest of the world. Of course, we're seeing the problem right now when Arab leaders, long time entrenched, non-democratic regimes that we've been doing business with for years are suddenly being toppled, and we're faced with an embarrassing situation that the people that we're now saying were undemocratic dictators, yesterday they were our strong allies. It's a problem of public action. It's a problem of American policy. It's not a problem of public diplomacy. It's not a problem of selling it correctly, and that's a great that's the great dilemma in Washington. And I think it's too often seen in terms of advertising rather than in terms of policy.
All right, let's go back to Abdullah Schleifer if we could. Professor, so far you seem to be the only person who is convinced that some form of public funding might help here. I think what some of the other guests are saying is that if the goods aren't good enough, public funds for the marketing campaign ain't going to work.
Well, BBC, as I said, is still offering I believe, a far better product. I mean, it's true they're having budget cuts, but maybe they could handle them better if they cut down the exorbitant salaries they pay their top executives. But in terms of people in the field, news coverage, AlJazeera is another example of public service broadcasting. It is not a privately owned commercial channel. It is sort of modeled after BBC. The funding comes from official bodies, but it operates with autonomy, which is BBC at its best, AlJazeera at its best. I think it's viable. I think it could happen in America, because I do think you can't simply say, well, that's the American enterprise system. The enterprise system, when applied to broadcast journalism, has been catastrophic. And it has led, for bottom line reasons, to simply dissolving serious foreign coverage. It has led to the sort of packaging. We don't have foreign correspondents anymore for bottom line reasons, because a bureau in Washington can pump out more stories. Everything becomes cost analysis. Well, that's not journalism. And I think that, therefore, there has to be another alternative, and it could be precisely, I would disagree with my colleague, Tom, by expanding PBS and NPR. Now, I mean, there will always be